Take these screws out, use a T20 socket. There's 4 of them. Over on the side, there's some push pins. Take the push pins out. There's 3 on each side. Just use a trim tool. And then you should be able to grab this panel and flip it up. It should fold over like that. Do the same on the other side. Take these screws out, use a 7mm socket. You want to do that on both sides, make sure it separates. And if there's any trim panel under here, you want to take that off. This vehicle doesn't have it. On the side, take these push pins off. There should be 2, one on the top, and then one a little lower. And use a T20 socket. Take these screws out. There should be 2 of those. And you can pull this back. If you have fog lights, you want to disconnect those fog lights. Just reach in and grab the connector. Slide those off. Then take a 7mm socket, and there's a screw that goes right up here. Take that off. Then you want to do the same on the other side. Now just grab the panel and slide it out. And you want to do the same on the other side. And just grab the cover, bumper cover, and slide it off. There's a screw in there. Use a 7mm socket. Take that one out. Might need a magnet. Up top, take these 2 screws out. Same 7mm socket. And down here, there's a 10mm bolt. Take that one out. Use a 10mm socket. Take that out. And you should be able to grab the light assembly. Pick it up a little bit. Slide it out. Disconnect the connector. There's a little lock tab on here. You have to slide the lock tab back a little. And then push down. Slide the connector off. Sometimes they're a little sticky. There we go. And set the light aside, and we'll do the same for the other side. Up top, take these 4 bolts off. Use a 10mm socket. Ready? Grab this panel and just slide it out of the way. Use a 10mm socket, take this bolt out. And slide the computer or the PCM towards the driver's side and then just flip it over. Just leave it over here. Take this bracket off. Use a 10mm socket for this bolt and then 10mm socket for the nut. Slide the bracket up. Disconnect the battery. Use a 10mm socket or a wrench. Loosen up this nut on the negative terminal. Slide the terminal off and set it to the side. I want to disconnect this cable from the hood latch. Use the needle nose pliers. You just kind of got to take the end out that has the ball, and then the retainer that's in there. You just got to squeeze it. It's kind of hard to see. Oh, and that ball just popped back in. Slide it out. Basically, these are the two tabs you're pushing down. That one and that one. If you can do them at the same time or pull a little pressure, push one at a time. And slide them out of the retainer right here. Take these brackets off the radiator. Use a 13mm socket. It's one on each side. Just make sure you don't lose the J-nut. Save that for later. Disconnect the connector right here and just push down on the tab. And then there's a retainer right here. Use a trim tool, just get underneath there and just pop it off. Take a marker or a crayon and just mark where this bar is. When we take it off, we're gonna just wanna line it up as close as possible. You could even go around the bolt holes. This bolt off right here. Use a 10mm socket. And take these bolts out. There's 3. And you got 3 on the other side. This bar comes up. There is a wire attached to it. You can disconnect the wire, or you can just slide it out of the way. Just be careful not to arc out on the battery. Just leave it there. We want to drain some of the coolant because we're going to take the upper radiator hose off. There is a coolant drain on this radiator on the passenger side. Just put a drain bucket underneath. Make sure the vehicle is not hot when you do this. And just twist this, and then you should be able to grab it with some pliers. Just wiggle it a little bit. Be careful because it is plastic. And there we go. Let it drain out. Take these push pins out right here. Use a trim tool. Just be careful. There's another one over here. You can grab this panel, just try to slide it up. clipped into the radiator up top. Try to slide underneath it. Take these bolts out on the side, use a 13mm socket. And take this one off as well. Use a trim tool, take this clip off right here. Same on the other side. There you go. Slide that down. You can just slide that out of the way if you want to, or you can take off the ambient temp sensor. Just use the trim tool. Or disconnect the connector. Underneath here, there's some push pins that are securing this panel to the radiator. Just use a trim tool, take those out. There should be 3. There and there as well. Take this hose clamp off, just use some hose clamp pliers. Just twist the hose a little bit, slide it off. And slide that hose out of the way. Disconnect this connector here. You can just take a straight blade screwdriver, just slide it underneath the lock. Slide that back. Push down on the connector, try to slide it out. Take the wires off with the trim tool. There's one right here. And one right here. There's another retainer right here. And the connector on the fan, you can use a screwdriver or a trim tool just to slide the lock back. It's kind of hard to see. Grab. Or you can use a pick. There we go. There. So you just slide that lock back and then just push right there and then slide the connector off. Take these bolts off right here. There's a 13. There's one on the other side as well. And grab the fan housing, just slide it up. There might be some transmission lines still attached down below. You can use a pry bar or use a trim tool, just pry those off. That should separate. Then gently just twist the fan assembly. Just watch out for this AC line. Be careful not to bend it too much. If you just twist it like that, you should be able to slide it out. It'll come straight out. And the same way it came out, just kind of tip it in sideways. And just slide it up. Slide it over. It would be slightly easier to do it with the transmission cooler lines disconnected, but it's not impossible. Make sure the tab is slid in down below here, and same on this side. That's all lined up. You take the transmission cooler line retainer and slide that in position. Just push it down. That's good. And put the bolts in. Same on the other side. Tighten those down. Connect the wiring. You plug in the fan over here. Just get it lined up. Lock it down. There we go. And then push on the lock. Then the retainers. Try to get those lined up. And a connector right here. Lock that in place. push down on the lock. We're going to transfer this over from the old one to the new one, and then push that in place right there. Put these bolts back in and tighten them down. Put this bottom piece on, just line it up, and push the push pins in. Connect the connector. Put the push pins in from underneath here, just push down. Do the same with the other ones. Put this cover in place. There's a couple pins that line up. And then it should line up with the radiator up top. Lock it down. And push the push pins in. One here, one on the other side. And slide the radiator hose. The upper radiator hose on. Get the clamp to line up a little bit. Looks good. Make sure you take and push and twist that drain so it closes. Now take this crossbar, line this up. Make sure it lines up with all your marks. Looks good. Put all the screws in. And tighten those down. And we can put this cable in, slide this end in, try to get it over the latch if you can, and then lock it in place. Just because it's easier to test this now, I'm just gonna close this, push this down. We'll close the hood, make sure it lines up, and that does line up, so that's good. We can release it. That's good. Slide that cable in there. Slide the connector in. Lock it down. Push the retainer on. I'll put the radiator support brackets in. Get the bolts started. Do the same on the other side. Tighten those down. I'm going to slide this bracket in place. Put these screws in, get those started. Tighten those down. Now take the headlights, connect the connectors, lock it down. It's just going to slide in position like that. Oops, it's not lining up. There we go. And put the bolts in. The longer bolt's going to go down here. Do the best you can. And the other one down here. Once those are started, then you can tighten them all down. Put this bolt back here and snug it down. Put this bracket on. Put the bolt in and the nut. Tighten that down. Tighten that one down as well. Connect the negative terminal. Just use a 10mm socket and snug this down. Make sure it's tight. Just give it a wiggle. Put that cover on. And you can take this PCM or the computer, slide it into the slots. Take the bolt, get that started. And snug it down. Take the bumper and just line it in position. Just pretty much snap in place. Do the same on the other side. Put the bolt in up here, get that lined up. Get it started. Just make sure this lines up. Snug it up. Make sure if you have fog lights to connect the fog lights. Just plug them in. Get the screws started. Put the push pins in. Put that in. And tighten these down. Install the screws under here. Tighten them down. Do the same on the other side. And put these screws in. Get those started. Tighten these down. And take these covers, slide the covers down, and push the push pins in. Good enough. At this point, we want to add our coolant. You want to add a 50-50 mix. Make sure it's the correct type of coolant. You want to fill it up and then run the engine for about 10 minutes, let it warm up. Once the coolant circulates through the system, then shut the vehicle down, recheck the level, and adjust accordingly.